All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're looking at something pretty wild, an ancient epic that seems to describe test tube babies and cloning 5,000 years ago. I mean, could one of our biggest modern scientific achievements actually be a technology that our ancestors already mastered? Let's take a look.
So that really is the big question, isn't it? Is test tube technology really 5,000 years old? We think of things like IVF, cloning, that's cutting edge stuff, right? But there's this incredible account in the ancient Indian epic, the Mahabharata, that might just turn that idea on its head. It really makes you wonder, what if they figured this out ages ago?
First, let's just think about where we are today. Modern biogenetics. It's amazing, right? We're talking in vitro fertilization, cloning, literally creating life in a lab. It feels like the absolute pinnacle of human achievement, our complete mastery over biology.
Okay, but what if I told you the instruction manual for all of that was written down thousands and thousands of years ago? I know, it sounds crazy, but the ancient text we're diving into today makes exactly that claim. So let's get into the story.
So, our story comes from the Mahabharata, specifically from a section called the Adi Parva. It all starts with a queen, Gandhari. She was granted this incredible boon that she would have 100 sons. But things went wrong. Her pregnancy turned into this huge medical crisis that just dragged on for years. And it was clear they needed a solution that was, well, completely unheard of.
Yeah, you heard that right. 2 years. Can you even imagine? 2 full years she was pregnant and still no baby. The frustration, the despair, it must have been unbearable. And it's this incredibly long, drawn-out crisis that sets the stage for what happens next. An act of pure desperation, followed by a truly brilliant intervention.
Finally, in a fit of absolute frustration, Gandhari strikes her own womb. But what comes out isn't a child. The text describes it as a hard, lifeless lump of flesh, like a ball of iron. It's a horrifying moment. She's completely devastated. She thinks the boon has failed, that it's all over, and she's ready to just have this thing thrown away.
But then, right at this moment, when all hope seems lost, a sage named Maharishi Vyasa shows up. And here's the really interesting part. The epic doesn't just call him a wise old man. It portrays him as the greatest scientist of his time. He tells Gandhari to stop, promises her that the boon will be fulfilled. He tells her, "I have a plan." And this is where things get, well, incredibly specific. This isn't described as some magical spell. It's a procedure, a step-by-step process. Vyasa has the mass of flesh washed and cooled down. Then he carefully divides it into 101 tiny pieces. Each of these little parts is then placed into its own clay pot, which has been filled with special nutrients. The pots are sealed up, and then they're left to incubate. See? This isn't a miracle, it's a method.
Now, look at this comparison. It's kind of mind-blowing. The ancient method used 101 clay pots. Modern science uses test tubes and incubators. The ancient method divided a single embryo. Modern science calls that cell cloning. They used ghee and special herbs. We use a carefully prepared nutrient solution. It's all happening in a controlled environment, just like a modern temperature-controlled lab. The parallels are just undeniable.
So, what we're looking at here, if you follow the description in the text, is basically the world's first incubation lab. I mean, think about it. He had these sealed pots, kept in a secret, climate-controlled place. What he had essentially done was engineer a way to grow life completely outside of the womb. It's the very definition of extracorporeal pregnancy. And speaking of definitions, here's the modern one for an artificial womb, a device that allows for extracorporeal pregnancy by growing a fetus outside the body of an organism. That sounds exactly like what we just described, doesn't it? A series of controlled environments, the pots, all designed to do one thing: grow life outside the body.
Just imagine the scale of this. 101. 101 individual embryos, each in its own little artificial womb. The sheer scope of this experiment is just staggering. And Vyasa was very clear. He told them to wait, to not open the pots until the time was right.
And then, the wait was over. When the specified time had passed, they began to open the pots. And guess what? It worked. From those pots emerged 100 healthy baby boys, the ones who had become the famous Kauravas, and one baby girl, Dushala. The boon wasn't just fulfilled, it was fulfilled through what can only be described as science.
So, what does this all mean? The story presents this whole thing not as magic, but as applied science, which leads to a really interesting question, right? Could some of our most modern technologies actually be rediscoveries? Knowledge that humanity once had, but was then lost for centuries?
This quote really gets to the heart of the claim. What we call modern science today are sages discovered thousands of years ago. Wow, that's a powerful idea. It completely flips our concept of progress on its head, reframing these ancient sages as the original scientists. The idea isn't that the knowledge was lost forever, but that it was just waiting for us to catch up.
All right, so let's just quickly recap the key points here. The story is presented as a scientific report, not a miracle. It gives us a step-by-step method that looks a whole lot like modern IVF and cloning. The sage, Vyasa, isn't a magician, he's a scientist. And the big idea here is that maybe, just maybe, we're not inventing, we're rediscovering ancient wisdom.
And that really leaves us with the final big question to chew on. Where do you draw the line between myth and forgotten history? When an ancient story is this detailed, this procedural, is it just a powerful metaphor? Or could it be a record of a science that was lost to the ages? It's definitely something to think about.